What's up guys, James from Buddyfight Weekly, and today we have Bren with his Wizard Stall deck. The deck profile. Then I'll leave it to him.
Alright, so I'm going to go through the monsters, then spells, then impacts, and then I'm going to explain how the deck works. So first off, size 1, I run 3 Toto of the Unseen Hands.
Alright.
This card allows me to use my excess gauge to nullify single attacks, forcing my opponents to link attack my weak monsters.
Okay.
3 leaked, and that goes along with 3 Dunkelheit. And these two work together as a tandem as a pair. These are used for breaking down walls. They're also good Dragonic Thunder fodder targets in case I want to keep my Toto alive.
Yeah, so far you're offering double rares, uncommons, and rares.
I also run 2 Acronite's Magician, and this is for a combo we'll see later.
Okay.
It's also a wizard, so it counts.
Yeah, of course.
My buddy is Barrier Master Shadow Flash.
Okay.
And he's the other part of the combo. He can nullify any attack as long as I put him to the drop zone. So I can make people waste attacks with Toto by they link attack something and well they have to kill it. So the only thing that this series is weak to is spells that destroy, but I can deal with that in another way. Now I go straight to my size 2s. I run 2 copies of Drago Wizard Tempest Wing. Normally this would be my champion wrestler slot here, but I want a main deck Answer to Seeker.
Okay. Answer to Seeker. Of course.
And 3 copies of Flame Master Gantek Diva. This is my backup plan. When I was building the deck last night, I couldn't find a way to close out games. I was able to stall until I ran out of deck, but I couldn't find a way to finish the game. And so I took out some of the key cards and put in this card instead. And this has been doing wonders. It's a 3 crit attacker without any cost at the very beginning of the game. And then later on, when I can just draw them again, I can pay out X number of gauge. In fact, I think you'll see it. I paid out 10 gauge to deal 6 damage.
6 damage.
Alright, so for spells, 2 copies of Great Spell My Grandfather Clog. Very simple. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and with the impact 9 different wizards in the deck. It makes it super easy to get 6. Being able to take an extra turn, it's pretty simple. Simply good. 3 copies of Kia Solomon First Volume. In this deck, Kia Solomon First Volume is a nullify attack, which makes it insane.
Okay. That's true.
And of course I follow that up with Kia Solomon Second Volume, because when I combine it with the Impact Great Creation, I get to gain 2 life and 1 gauge, as opposed to just gaining 1 life.
That's so good.
Kosher, on the other hand, lets me gain 2 gauge and 1 draw, as well as 1 life. This is the engine. The idea is to get a creation as fast as possible and then stall out. Of course, the staple Magical Goodbye. You don't run any less than 3 of it. In this deck, it can afford 4. And I like the trial deck art, so I run 4 of the nice ones.
Of course.
Because 4 guys mean, why not?
Yeah.
I have universally hated this card, but I run 2 Solomon Shield because it works in this deck. In case I don't want to waste gauge, I can just use that and it counts as a Kia Solomon First Volume, which is so weird, but it works. It's redundancy, but it's redundancy for a good card. And then 3 copies of You the Man for a surprise, because sometimes they just like to single attack just to try and kill, and this also counts as another Kia Solomon First Volume because it negates their attack.
Okay.
I even get some benefits out of it because I counterattack. So if they start linking, then I can just start charging this because they just wasted attacks.
Yeah.
And then I run 3 copies of Gunrod Dalgetsu. It's another way to get going and finish the game. Little punish damage here and there while I set up. It also works as an attacker late game when I don't have many cards in hand. So I can just attack with this and then attack with this to get another 3 damage. And then finally, 3 copies of New Era Great Spell the Creation, and that's the other part of the engine of the deck. When I draw a card outside of my draw phase, I get to gauge 1 and gain a life. And this functions really, really well in this deck because I'm gaining so much gauge and gaining so much life that I'm able to stall out the game until I draw what I need to win. If I have enough gauge to win, then I can go either way. This way, or just eliminating the cards in my opponent's hand by just killing the cards in the field.
God damn it!
Sideboard-wise, these answer typical matchups. Aggressive decks, I use Elegance. Aggressive decks like to ram me with a whole bunch of critical, and as long as you're not running Penetrate, this will take care of it. I also have so much life, I can afford to pay this. 2 copies of Champion Wrestler because screw Katana World. Oh, you have 3 Art of Haste, Explosive Fall, and 2 Secret Sword Lethal Formation. How nice. Here's my hand, goodbye field. 2 copies of Abracadabra in case I face Dragon Roll. They like to use Dragonic Thunder on my size 1s. I'll counter those, and I have the excess gauge anyways. 2 copies of Chillax. This also helps for aggressive decks, but at the same time, it stops the Iron Impact deck, which likes to rush a lot with face damage and a lot of face damage and a lot of face damage. It also helps against Burn Wizards as well. And finally, 2 copies of Oops, because it's a universal answer.
Yeah.
So how the deck works is the idea is that your goal is to get as much gauge as possible into the field. What you really want to have at some point is this kind of field early. You want to have a Leak to your center, a Toto to your right, and a Ducal Height to your left. The high priority targets are the Leak to Ducal Height, but because Toto is so dangerous, they'll usually attack it first, preferably Link attacking it, because 3,000 defense and a Link attack is kind of dangerous, and I mean, there's no point. Right? It's a huge minus to them, and that's great. If they don't get rid of Toto and they clear off, I don't know, Link to Ducal Height somehow, then what you can do is call Shadow Flash to the center. And now it gets really difficult. Link attacks can be nullified by Shadow Flash, and Toto can nullify single attacks. It gets really annoying just when a deck relies on attacking to win. Alternatively, instead of maybe, I don't know, Toto or whatever, you can have Magician in the center. Magician is a way during the opponent's turn to take advantage of the creation because you draw a card during your opponent's turn. But you still get to gauge 1 and gain the life, so that this card pays for itself. Okay. When it dies, gain 1 life and draw a card. No gauge payment because you're gaining 1 gauge. That's insane.
How come you don't run the other guy?
Which card?
Will Glassheart.
Will Glassheart
is it too fast?
Will Glassheart is actually a high priority target for me because I have to pay 1 gauge on attack.
Yeah.
The focus I've been doing with the creation decks in the last couple of weeks was that I was trying to spam as many draw effects as possible.
Okay.
It's actually not how a deck should work. Yeah. Creation should be just a passive. The only monster that should really have draw effects, I think, is Acronite's Magician. If you have any others, then it's just a waste of gauge. You don't really gauge plus.
Yeah.
At the same time, you don't really get to deal damage to your opponent, and if you don't have any gauge plus, there's no sort of backup plan for you. You can't play your Tempest Wings to deal with Seeger. You can't play your nice ones because you don't draw enough.
Okay.
So all in all, Glassheart is a really good card, but not in this deck.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Another thing I like to do with this deck is have something along this line.
Yeah.
And usually at the very end I try to keep one of this in hand.
Yeah.
So while this card is pinging, it's doing all that stuff, you don't really notice it. It's just 1 damage,
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm going to pay 5, deal you 3, attack you for another 3. Okay, you guarded that, attack you for 3, sacrifice this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying just to face.
Yeah.
I think the best part is that you can pay out the 5, and then when you're ready, Grandfather Clock before attacking, so that way your sacrifice gets you 2 wizards in the drop zone for next turn, and so on. Having everything be wizards, every key card be a wizard is really strong for the deck.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that's really all you can say about this deck. It's great at stalling. The weaknesses of the deck is a spell-heavy removal deck. So, for example, decks that run Thunder Devastation, Power Ray Maximum.
Yeah. No one really.
Cards like that, but it's not really run as much, which is nice for this kind of thing. But This is what this deck is weak to because they don't really like to face off against Spell Null, which is why I have the Abracadabra here, but it's not in the main deck because I don't expect people to play that first round. They'll side it in, but by the time I'm ready.
Okay.
$8 to $10.
Is that it?
Other than that, I think that's it. So please like the video, rate, comment, subscribe. See you again on Buddyfight Weekly.
Alright. Thanks, guys. See you later.